Yeah, so the full paper, the name of the paper, title of the paper is The Political Economy of the Water Crisis in India, an examination from environmental justice framework. So I have tried to develop an angle. Why this angle? An examination from the environmental justice framework, because I want to see this water crisis or political economy of water crisis through this lens. And why this environmental justice is important, I think this will be discussed in the latter part of the presentation. So, in abstract itself, the first page is the abstract, and in the abstract itself, I have tried to give some data based on the World Bank reports and Niti Aayog, right? So in this abstract, I have said that India, now the world's most populous nations, home to approximately 18% of the global population, possesses only about 4% of the planet's fresh water resources according to World Bank. The World Bank estimates that around 163 million Indians lacks access to safe drinking water. Right? India's composite water index management, which is prepared by Niti Aayog in 2018, warns that the country is experiencing its most serious and acute crisis, water crisis, with nearly 600 million people facing high to extreme water stress in India. Alarmingly, around 2 lakh lives are lost annually due to inadequate access to safe water, highlighting the scale of the crisis, right? So this is this brief data is showing the scale of crisis we are facing today in India. And at the same time, many writers, even a prominent name or water activist Bandana Shiva, has written a book that is of new ire and new kind of wars, in which she has talked about the role of water in coming days, and you can say the gravity of the water crisis in India or across the world in context of climate change, climate crisis, environmental impact and pollution. So the next paragraph in abstract deals with and says that the water crisis in India cannot be understood merely as an environmental or infrastructural problem. It is deeply embedded in the political economy, and for purpose of this paper, I have tried to briefly define this political economy of water crisis as a nexus of political, economic, and institutional arrangements that shape how water resources are distributed, governed, and controlled. And one word is missing here, that is produced. How water resources are produced, distributed, governed, and controlled. This perspective examines, means this you can say political economy of water crisis perspective examines the structural determinants of water access and governance, asking who controls water, for whom, by what means, and with what consequences, while addressing the disparities across the class, caste, gender, and geography, according to Baker 2010 and Mehta 2014. The detailed references and their quotations has been dealt in the main body of the paper. And now the environmental justice. An environmental justice framework provides a robust analytical lens. So, this environmental justice framework is an analytical lens to evaluate these inequalities. So, in this paper, inequalities in production of what? Production of fresh or clean water, right? Inequality in terms of distribution, decision making. It means that the whole dimension of inequalities has been analyzed in this paper, and It also assumes that there is inequalities, there is injustice in production of water, distribution of water, consumption of water, and that is why there is need for environmental justice framework. Means there is injustice, and that is why justice framework is required. Emerging from the global debates on human rights, ethics, and justice, environmental justice foregrounds fairness in environmental decision making, equitable distribution of environmental benefits and burdens, and recognition of marginalized voices. Applied to India's water crisis, the framework allows for a critical assessment of policy failures, privatization trends, and erosion of constitutional guarantee of right to clean water under Article 21 of the Constitution of India, as recognized by the Supreme Court of India in Subhas Kumar versus the State of Bihar 1991, when Bihar was undivided. So, this paper implies the environmental justice framework to interrogate the political economy of India's water crisis, identify systemic policy gaps, and propose actionable measures. The study aims to contribute to the national and global debates on water governance in an era of intensifying resource scarcity by situating the crisis within the broader discourse of human rights and distributive justice. So, the objective of paper is that to identify the gaps, analyze the water crisis, and propose the actionable measures through which this water crisis can be regulated, curtailed, and addressed. So after this abstract, and in this abstract I have given the whole idea, or you can say a scheme of the paper. So now introduction. So in introduction, I have tried to contextualize this water crisis in terms of its importance, and I have referred Solomon, a very great writer on water crisis and authority, where he has highlighted the importance of you can say water, right? So he has said that historically access to water has been central to rise and fall of civilizations. Solomon 2010 notes that water has nurtured societies flourishing and precipitated their decline when mismanaged or depleted. In contemporary context, water remains the backbone of the socio-economic development and essential for sustaining life and well-being. It has been said by UNESCO in 2022, right? So, in this paper, I have argued that water is not merely the chemical composition of H2, right? Rather, it carries deep socio-economic significance, comparable to air's indispensability. Means I have compared the air, हवा को और पानी को जहाँ कंपेयर करने की बात है, comparable to air's indispensability. Water underpins human existence in material, cultural, and political terms. Civilizations have long established rules and norms, right? So it has been intertwined with the production system, divisions of labor, and technical advancement. These governance structures have historically mediated human water relations, as Baker had put out, right? In next paragraph and under highlighted part of this paper or introduction, water scarcity is exacerbated by uneven distribution and excess, which are mediated by entrenched social and political hierarchies. Water allocation is not merely a matter of physical availability. It is determined by socio-cultural and legal framework that reflect underlying structures of class, caste, and regional inequality. Joy et al. 2008. And of course, it is academic paper. That is why I have not given the example. And the most important example is available in Delhi, right, where there is you can say ghettos and colonies, unauthorized colonies, and there is elite section of society who are living in the particular society and all, where they are using water, fresh water for cleaning cars and gardening and all, and these waters, this important water is not available for drinking purposes for most of the people in Delhi who are living at the fringe of you can say urban city like Delhi. So consequently, water scarcity does not affect all groups equally. So what we have to understand that of course water is a universal you can say things, but scarcity does not affect all groups equally. सबको बराबर प्रभावित नहीं करता है in terms of consequences and impact, right? Despite constitutional guarantee of right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution, the most severe burden of crisis are disproportionately borne by marginalized communities, and these marginalized communities are not in terms of caste, creed, and class only, rather in terms of their economic status also. So city like Delhi और मुंबई और बेंगलोर, अभी रिसेंटली डाउन टू अर्थ जो मैगजीन है उसमें निकला था बेंगलोर के बारे में, and Bangalore is facing one of the worst water crisis in India, right? Similarly in Delhi, similarly in Mumbai, similarly in Chennai. So rising urgent question. तो ये क्या कर रहा है? एक urgent question raise कर रहा है about the distributive justice. Herein lies the relevance of political economy of water. So what is the political economy? We can say the political and economic decisions regarding to water, which deals with and examines a perspective, examines how political, economic, legal, and social systems determine water production, distribution, and consumption, and by extension, who benefits and who suffers. Right? It has been said by Schwein Gidau. There is a scholar who has written this, and that is why political and economic decisions have been taken in a way that the water crisis has been aggravated in cities like Delhi. Private water you can say extraction and supply are becoming routine of the city. The water is not available. They are extracting groundwater. They are supplying. Means that due to scarcity, the demand of water is increasing, and that is why the privatization and market. Right? So I will skip the review of literature. I have written many things. I have cited many authors also, but I will not go to those points, but rather I will highlight some important points, right? So, with regard to environmental justice framework, which offers valuable tools for understanding the water crisis, as Scholzberg 2007 outlines, environmental justice has three key dimensions. So, through these dimensions, I have tried to understand the political economy of water crisis. That why political and economic decisions in terms of water crisis has been taken in a way that have created the inequality and unequal distribution, and through these three dimensions, that is distributional justice, fair sharing of benefits and burden, procedural justice, inclusive decision making, and recognition, means respect for diverse identities, knowledge, and needs, right? So the recent global and Indian studies show that the communities facing social exclusions are more likely to experience poor water quality, irregular supply, limited political voice in water related decisions, right? So this has been highlighted, and when we come to Supreme Court of India, the apex court in Subhas Kumar versus the state of Bihar has interpreted Article 21, which includes access to clean water. So, what we can criticize is that, of course, even after recognizing the right to clean water under Article 21 of the Constitution as one of fundamental right or as a part of right to life, despite that, at the execution level, at the distribution level, at the consumption level, the marginalized classes are facing difficult situation in excess of right to excess of clean water and fresh water. So I have cited many, you can say, report, even by Niti Aayog, World Bank, and all, right? And the next paragraph of this paper is inequality, socio-economic structures, and political economy of India's water crisis. And I started with the constitutional, you can say, constitutional goals, which has been, you can say, enshrined in preamble itself, where it aims to deliver certain kind of justice, that is political, social, and economic. And I have tried to also elaborate on the entrenched social structure which determines the distribution of material wealth, and water has been regarded as material wealth in this paper also. So in the second paragraph of this subtitle, I have tried to argue that the economic power in India parallels this social hierarchy. Member of upper classes and caste disproportionately control resources, educational access, job opportunity, while historically marginalized groups such as scheduled caste and all minorities, women, are deprived from the material wealth comparatively. And I have cited Oxfam International Report 2018, right, in which this contrast has been, you can say, highlighted. Even we have discussed the Oxfam Report 2024 at this forum, right? And this contrast is stark. The top 10% of the population holds nearly 77% of the national wealth, while bottom half sees just 1% increase in their share. Oxfam report. Again, I have further cited Jean Dress, and who says, through constitutional guarantees equality under Article 14 and prohibits untouchability, these provisions struggle against entrenched cultural practices and socio-economic segregation. Data reveals the persistent disparities in access to fundamental resources, including water, as a direct consequence of caste, class, and gender inequalities. Jean Dress, 2021. These contradictions between constitutional egalitarian goals and dominant groups' entrenched interest have not yet been resolved in India. So, what I have highlighted here is that the gap between constitutional aspirational goals and the social practices. Of course, there is goal, but when we comes to execution, it is seemingly failed. So we can't generally say that the execution is problem. Where is the problem? Why is the problem? Who is creating hurdles? I have tried to give certain, you can say, insights on that, about the bureaucracy, caste system, class system, regional divisions, and especially the policy failures, especially with regard to, we can say, when we are framing the policy for development, growth. Why unequal development across the India? Bihar is very backward state right now, but some states are more progressive. So why this has happened? It is not because of certain, you can say, bad luck and good luck. It is because of the policy choices. So I have tried to say that in India there is a Water Pollution Act, but there is no Right to Clean Water Act. There is no law at all in India which deals with fresh water and right to clean water. So I have tried to highlight that gaps also in terms of structure, failure of law, failure of recognition of law, and all. So I have tried to give many references. Even I have said in this paragraph where I am here. Historical analogies deepen this analysis. During Great Bengal famine of 1943, Amar Sen and Shashi Tharoor argues that tragedy was not due to food shortages and but due to colonial policy prioritizing economic interest over human lives. Sen 2009, Tharoor 2016. Similarly, India's water crisis stems not from absolute scarcity but from discriminatory socio-political structures governing allocation and distribution. So, what I have tried to argue here is that water scarcity in India is not because of external reasons, not only because of external reasons like climate change, climate crisis, and other things. Rather, it is because of discriminatory policy, you can say policy and other things taken by the government of India. And I will give an example. In 2016, the government of India has tried to draft a law, draft national water law framework, something like that. And in that, they tried to include this right to clean water as a fundamental right or constitutional right or statutory right. But that law has not been passed by the Indian Parliament till this date. And what is the result of that? We have pollution control law, but we don't have a statutory law dealing with the right to clean water and allocation of fresh water. So we are still guided by the judicial decisions of the Supreme Court of India. And again court is saying that right to clean water is fundamental right. It is integral part of Article 21 of the Constitution of India. So whether policy makers are giving importance to this basic element of our life, that is the water, answer is no. So in next you can say subheading, I have tried to frame it as environmental justice and right to clean water, understanding justice in context of water crisis. And here I have tried to review the conception of justice in terms of different perspective, in terms of Marxian perspective, in terms of communitarian perspective, in terms of libertarian perspective. Of course, these are the you can say political point of view through which the justice has been analyzed. Like in terms of Rawls, John Rawls, his famous theory of justice, in which he is saying that there should be, you can say, difference principle, there must be something, you can say, some parameters on the basis of which we should deliver justice. There is justice, idea of justice by Amartya Sen, Sandel, what is right thing to do. So he is analyzing justice through communitarian perspective, Marxian perspective on justice. So there are different kind of different perspective of justice in through which they have tried to conceptualize justice, but there is no perfect definition of justice, and even the environmental justice has not been defined in Indian constitution or constitutional text. Rather, this has been developed by the judiciary, and here the role of judiciary is very crucial in defining right to clean water, in defining Article 21, whether broadening it or you can say expanding the right to clean water. But at the same time, I am also asserting this point in this paper that there is no single definition constitutionally and statutorily. Rather, it is this is the definition given by the judiciary. And what is that definition? In this paragraph where I am here, right? In India, the concept of environmental justice is not explicitly defined in constitutional or statutory text. Nevertheless, progressive decisions have significantly shaped its evolution within the broader framework of constitution and environmental law, as Professor Upendra Bakshi has argued and Professor Kulit has argued in 2014 and 11 respectively. So, environmental justice can be understood as a set of guiding principles, including polluter pays principle, strict liability, intergenerational equity, and the right to pollution-free environment that scrutinizes the actions and inactions of both state and non-state actors in causing environmental harm and climate degradation. So there are set of principles on the basis of which we try to conceptualize different rights under heading of right to life and personal liberty under Article 21 of the Constitution of India, right? So in the next section In the next section, I have tried to define, or you can say analyze, the role of constitutional courts in broadening the meaning of right to life. And certainly, under this category, right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution, this right to clean water has been recognized. Now the question is that why this right to clean water has been recognized? And the judiciary, in many cases, especially Subhash Kumar versus the state of Bihar 1991, has said that the water crisis is, you can say, increasing. It is becoming a routine, or you can say everyday, you can say, matter. Privatization is increasing. Industrialization is causing water and air pollution, and that is why, in this context of crisis, they have recognized the right to clean water, or you can say environmental justice, because they are seeing that the result of developmental mechanism is what? Ruthless exploitation of nature, ruthless exploitation, ruthless, you can say, environmental pollution. And in that case, these basic rights need to be recognized. Otherwise, this right to life doesn't mean anything for anyone. It will be meaningless. It means that until this water crisis emerged due to many factors, the court was not able to recognize. But in 90s and 1980s and 90s, they recognized this right. So in that context, I have tried to give the context, and I have tried to conceptualize and theorize that the right to clean water was recognized in material context of water crisis, which was emerging because of many factors, that was developmental model, pollution, climate change, and other things, light patterns and other things. So I will not go into detail of that aspect. So what is the final thought of this paper? The final thought of this paper is that the political economy of water crisis reveals that it is this crisis is a result of political and economic decision of the policy makers, right? It is not because of some external factors, or you can say the foreign hand and other things. Rather, it is the conscious decision. And today also, due to this scarcity, there are some opportunities are emerging for others. Like सुनील सर कह रहे थे कि आज डेवलपमेंट के नाम पर पेप्सी का प्लांट आप बना दीजिए, कुछ लोगों को रोजगार दीजिए, लेकिन उसके किसके कीमत पर? We are doing at the cost of underground water, extraction of the water, and these things are not for the welfare of the maximum people, rather welfare, or you can say profit of certain or a few people. तो ये जो रिजल्ट है, ये वाटर क्राइसिस है, ये वाटर क्राइसिस हमारे जो पॉलिटिकल इकोनॉमी है, आपके वाटर से रिलेटेड जो डिसीजंस मेकिंग है, उसकी वजह से. And if that is the case, that can be addressed. That means that it is human made, it is anthropogenic, it is man made, and that is why some measures has been suggested in the concluding part of this paper. And so, to achieve the goals of environmental justice in context of right to clean water, the first need is for a state means here central government or state government, to intervene in the social, political, economic and cultural conditions in which or through which the resources like water are produced, exchanged and distributed and consumed. It means that I have tried to underscore the importance of a state or a state machinery. Of course, the trend is completely opposite, but I have tried to say that without intervention of a state, positive or constructive intervention of state, we are not going to solve the water crisis in India. Secondly, the fundamental laws of deprivation and discrimination of political economy of a state in general and political economy of water crisis in particular need to be changed. It means that what I am saying that the policy making style, the process of policy making, that is the procedural aspect of policy making, need to be changed, and those people who are deprived and marginalized from the a right to clean water need to be incorporated. Their views, their knowledge need to be incorporated in policy making. The third, this top-down approach need to be changed. Means that local level crisis need to be solved by the local representatives. Of course, there is also a criticism कि लोकल लेवल के जो पंचायत के रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स हैं या ब्यूरोक्रेट्स हैं, दे आर अलाइंड विद द you can say powerful people who are propagating and implementing their vested interest, of course. But involvement of people, involvement of larger section of the society, I think can provide a robust measures to handling this water crisis. Fourthly, the state policy making must reoriented with centrality of poor and deprived and those who have monopoly over material wealth of society and state, as well as narrative building machines. So of course it is the continuation of that, means that the poor and deprived section, and especially who are deprived from the environmental rights, must be taken into consideration while policy making or implementing those policies. And fifthly and last, some sort of the state socialism, of course, as envisaged under directive principles of state policy or constitution and defined by Supreme Court of India, need to be reflected in policy making of a state, where ruthless use and plundering of natural resources cannot be allowed for extraction and exploitation for crony profits, but in name of development, which is highly exclusive and discriminatory. So this is the end of the brief presentation of this paper. I have tried to highlight the key essence of this paper, in which which has been written for international, you can say, seminar. And I will also request to give your insight and you can say feedback on this paper, so that I will further improve and enrich this paper. Thank you so much, sir, for giving this opportunity, and I am stopping the slide sharing, screen sharing. Thank you. Now the forum is open for your feedback, discussion, question and opinion, sir. So anyone can unmute and speak. Yes, Anil sir. Anil Savan sir.
Yes. Yeah.
Audible, sir.
Yeah. Firstly, Mr. Amit Kumar, you have presented a very, very important topic and important inputs on this topic. And you have given various dimensions of water, right from the policy making to the distribution, and what is a probable or suggested solution.